Well, Piers, it's not even that it's about his actual opinions. It's about the opinions that many thought leaders on the left purport that he has, which are complete lies. So look, I am in somewhat of a reconciliatory mode here. So I'd like to ask Cenk, I have 10 headlines here he has put up about Charlie Kirk. They are on his channel right now, and let's see if Cenk believes that these are true. Charlie Kirk says prominent black women took white people's spots. Charlie Kirk boasts about his all-white basketball team. Charlie Kirk gives piggish advice to high school girls. Ex-employee exposes Charlie Kirk's grift. Charlie Kirk embarrasses himself. Charlie Kirk's brain melts explaining anti-vax conspiracy. Charlie Kirk rants about women in their 30s. Charlie Kirk has literally no clue how the real world works. Charlie Kirk gets triggered, declines appearance over pronouns. Charlie Kirk doubles down on women-hating backlash. I am telling you, Piers, Charlie Kirk was one of the best human beings I ever met. He did not have a bone of racism, misogyny, or anything else in his body. But liars lie, and they gin up otherwise good people. From the little bit we know about this shooter, he had a stable household, he was going to college, he was fine. We'll find out where he got radicalized. But please, please, let's not pretend we don't know where this stuff is coming from. And please, let's not pretend that this thing is going both ways, because it is absolutely not. I also have well, you know what, Cenk, I'll ask you a question directly, actually. Do you think Charlie wanted to be martyred? Do you think Charlie wanted to be martyred? Do you think Charlie wanted to be killed? Yes or no?
Of course not. What kind of asinine question is that?
You don't? Because that's pretty interesting. Because here's a video of you, Cenk, talking when Charlie was at a breakfast.
It allows for easy martyrdom for these guys, and they don't deserve it. But I do also want to point out, as they're in the middle of crying now, although Charlie was smiling ear to ear throughout the entire video, thinking, yes, I'm now the victim, and I'll get to claim that my rights have been infringed.
Did you catch the beginning of that, Cenk? Listen, we'll do it again.
No, I didn't, and that's totally out of. No, we're not going to do it again. Totally out of context. I don't even know what the hell you're talking about.
No. Listen, brother.
Are you trying to get harm on me?
Second.
Is that what you're trying to do, you loser? Jesus Christ.
No. I'm trying to
do conciliation.
Exactly what
this
people
guy,
like you
look at the last
have done.
two things of your last two guests said.
Piers.
Jesus,
no,
man.
what they said was, yes, we should have reconciliation, but it is not without any contrition, right? It's not without a mea culpa. Charlie was accosted by Antifa at a breakfast in Philadelphia, and the video that I just played is you with a cartoon of him as Charlie Brown saying that he would love to be martyred so he could be the victim. Well, I guarantee you his wife, who now doesn't have a husband, and his kids who don't have fathers, did not want him to be martyred.
What you just played isn't what
It's exactly what you said, brother.
It's exactly what it was.
Let's do it again.
No, it isn't.
We just
heard it. We just heard it.
It's not?
All right, so
it's not?
no,
let's do it again.
Cut this crap out.
Come on,
no,
we'll do it again.
Piers, can we talk about reality? This is something he's going back to like 10 years.
Well, I think Cenk should be allowed to respond.
What I said there.
And they don't deserve it.
It allows for easy martyrdom for these guys, and they don't deserve it. That was when Antifa was going after him at a breakfast in Philadelphia.
Okay, so let's let Cenk respond to that.
No, that was about words, you moron. Okay, Jesus Christ, man. All right, so
easy
now let's
martyrdom.
get to reality, okay? Shut up.
There's a
weekend, there were some actions taken against them that I do not agree with. I wanted to show that for you guys. As always, we believe in being principled here and being for freedom of speech no matter what. And then we'll find out if Charlie Kirk is actually for freedom of speech. So first, here is video of that encounter in Philly. Yeah, I don't agree with that. They poured water over his head. It's not the right thing to do. One, because anything physical is not the morally right thing to do and not the progressive thing to do. Number two, it allows them to play the victim card, which they can't wait to play. So why would you help them like that? Now, let me give you a little bit more of the video and then I'll give you full context. Candace Owens, who was there, wrote a tweet saying, Charlie Kirk and I just got attacked in capital letters and protested by Antifa for eating breakfast. I don't know if it actually is Antifa, that's what she's claiming, but this tweet already contains at least one lie. She went on to say they are currently following us through Philly, all black and Hispanic police force protecting us as they scream, F the racist police. Now, on the video it appears that there are also white officers, but that's not at all important. The lie is that they were chanting F the racist police. I want to show you the video and you will see for yourself that they're actually chanting F the racist policies, which is very, very different. Watch. Policies as clear as day, repeated over and over again. And it doesn't sound that much like police, it's policies. So now, that doesn't affect the fact that the person shouldn't pour the water over Charlie Kirk. I'm sure Charlie would agree that protesting him is a freedom of speech issue, because that's what he claims all the time when they do it to the left. I'm kidding that I'm sure Charlie would agree, because Charlie often does not agree with freedom of speech. It's just whenever it is convenient. In fact, they have a professor watch list with over hundreds of professors on that list where they try to intimidate them into silence. Now, I want to be clear one more time here. Doing anything physical is not the right direction. And I agree with Philip Wagman, who wrote for the Washington Examiner, that it allows for easy martyrdom for these guys, and they don't deserve it. But I do also want to point out, as they're in the middle of crying now, although Charlie was smiling ear to ear throughout the entire video, every time they panned to him, he had a giant smile over his face thinking, yes, I'm now the victim, and I'll get the claim that my rights have been abridged. Now, but does Charlie actually care about rights being abridged? And especially on the issue of freedom of speech, because he puts all these professors on a watch list, they get death threats nonstop, some so much so that they are driven from campus. And for example, a professor at Drexel named George Cicero Lamar was not allowed back onto campus by Drexel University unless he had security with him, and they put him on administrative leave even though he had just expressed his freedom of speech. But Charlie Kirk thought, great, let's intimidate them. And that's the whole point of his professor watch list. At that point, he didn't seem overly concerned about freedom of speech. CNN caught up with him on that and asked him, hey, aren't you concerned about these people being punished for exercising their freedom of speech? Look at his answer.
Some of these professors have gotten death threats as a result of being outed on these websites. Do you see that the watch list has responsibility for that?
I don't have sympathy for people that are in public life that say these sort of statements and then try and play the victim card.
You don't have sympathy for people who say outrageous statements, as you do all of the time, against immigrants, minority groups, etc., and then play the victim card. So I assume today that Charlie's not playing the victim card, or Candace Owens. Oh, well, they are all over the internet and all over media. Oh my God, I'm the victim. They protested us. Well, you want people to protest all those professors who are actually doing their job. The irony, I don't know if it's lost on them because they're not that bright, or if they think, irony, that's for liberals. We don't care to be principled. We don't actually care about freedom of speech. Don't you get it? This is just propaganda. So that's exactly what they're doing. Here, I got another example for you guys. You guys know the BDS movement, that's to boycott Israel for their occupation of the Palestinians for decades now. Now, you might agree or disagree with that principle, but there's a bill that was proposed in Congress that is particularly odious. It is among the most unconstitutional bills that I have ever seen. It would punish people for exercising their freedom of speech against Israel. How is that remotely American? So let me give you an explanation of what it is. The ACLU sent a letter to the Senate saying, this bill would impose civil and criminal punishment on individuals solely because of their political beliefs about Israel and its policies. Well, you say punish, but ACLU, what would be the maximum penalty you can get if you were to dare to speak out against Israel? Violations would be subject to a minimum civil penalty of $250,000. That's the minimum. And a maximum criminal penalty of $1 million and 20 years in prison. Well, I mean, but look, guys, Charlie Kirk mainly focuses on college campuses. How about college campuses? Well, The Intercept reporting on US campuses, punishment of pro-Palestinian students for expressing criticisms of Israel is so commonplace that the Center for Constitutional Rights refers to it as the, quote, Palestine exception to free speech. Well, I'm sure that if you ask Charlie Kirk about it, he's going to be principled and say that is outrageous, and if people want to be in favor of BDS, they should be allowed to. It is a freedom of speech issue, especially on college campuses. Well, luckily he was asked. What was his answer? Kirk condemned the BDS movement as anti-Semitic. Okay, so I just want to understand what you claim are your principles. So if you think something is discriminatory, apparently it's okay to ban it. Now, I don't think that's right, but apparently that's your position. Charlie, you're free to clarify. Do you think it's that law that is being proposed on the BDS issue in Congress is outrageous and an affront to freedom of speech, which it clearly is? Or do you think it's totally fine because you happen to think that movement is discriminatory? Because people think you're discriminatory. So I guess that would mean that you should stop crying every time someone protests you. Like I said, doing anything physical is unacceptable, and that person who threw the water needlessly put them in a position where they get to play the victim card, when in reality, the rest of the folks there were exercising their freedom of speech against what they consider to be discriminatory and offensive speech that Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens do. And if they're still crying about that, they have no leg to stand on at all, because they are the world's largest hypocrites. They don't actually believe in freedom of speech. They love trying to intimidate professors, and in some cases even endangering their lives by putting them on a so-called professor watch list. And they have never shown any concern for the freedom of speech of those professors, the protesters, or anyone who does not agree with them. So understand who they are. That's who they are.
Listen to the Young Turks. The Young Turks had it right. They should have went full economic populist, and they should have promised UBI, universal basic income. They should have went full anti-billionaire class.
Oh, and Social Security.
They should also said, you know what, Donald Trump is right on immigration, but these are the things wrong with it. They should have went full socialist, nationalist.
Social Security.
You know what I'm saying though? Like expand Social Security, universal basic income. They should, like, that would have been dangerous for us to run against.
Totally.
Instead, again,
instead they got Liz Cheney.
No, we talked about this on Thought one time.
We
talked about having a populist.
We did with Biden though. I'm sorry.
All you have to do is look at Denmark. Denmark is a country. Their left-wing party has been in power forever. All they had to do is bite the bullet and say, okay, we're doing an immigration pause. Just pause immigration. And suddenly you can get away with so much more social democratic stuff.
Yeah, but here's
single payer, all the bullet and say it's okay to restrict immigration and not make it this deranged priority to replace the citizens of your own country and gloat about it and how you're like getting a better group of people in. If you don't do that, you can win elections.
But Blake,
the Young Turks had it figured out. Just one sec. I'm telling you, Cenk and Anna Kasparian, they were nice having them on the show. They saw it, and I was like, geez, if they run that campaign, that's dangerous. I hope this gets clipped up and sent to them, because they were completely ignored by the Democrat Party. Like, completely ignored.
Oh, they were put in a corner.
And exactly. And they were the only ones that understood. Like, you could have expanded the Democrat base. That would have been so scary to run against. If they would have run on, like, legalization of weed, universal basic income, strict immigration. I'm serious. Strict immigration, ending the wars, like the old Bernie Sanders portfolio.
Yeah.
Instead, Kamala went for the cheap corporate cash. And because everyone said you need to finance your campaign against Trump.
All right, back at the Young Turks at the RNC, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian. As you can tell, Charlie Kirk joins us.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it has. Good to have you here from Talking Points USA. And so
close.
Turning Point.
Oh, did I say that? That's hilarious. I meant Turning Point USA.
Close, Cenk.
That was a Freudian slip. Okay, so Charlie, you and I now have some strange agreements. Okay, so
the whole world is just it's coming to an end.
Right. So, but believe me, we have plenty of disagreements, and we're going to get to it. So we both think Biden's a bad candidate. We both say that we represent the populist wing of our parties. Right.
I'm honest. Who's your preferred candidate?
Oh, I would never.
You think Bernie could do this? If Bernie got shot, would Bernie do this?
Look, I hope nobody ever gets shot.
How about Gretchen?
We never find out. We never find out. Hey, Gretchen Whitmer almost got kidnapped by you guys. So, she was pretty courageous on that too. So, okay. Anyway,
but do you think Gavin Newsom would do this? He got shot. He would run quick away if Gavin Newsom got shot.
So, but
I'm giving you a hard time.
I know, Charlie. Look, I said that Trump that day was courageous.
You were legit. That's why I'm here today, is because you were like one of the honest guys on the left that was like, okay, that's pretty ballsy.
Yeah, no question. He did a great job, and I love when the crowd chanted USA, USA, because the president had just been saved, right? And so former president, but we still call former presidents President Trump, et cetera. And that was a great moment. He says, fight, fight, fight. They say USA, USA. I love that. That makes me proud of America, okay? Now, having said that, you know that has nothing to do with policy. So if you're a man who cares about fill in the blank, universal health care, paid family leave, a higher minimum wage, which leads to higher wages overall, you care about fighting inflation, you care about getting corruption out of politics, why the hell would Trump doing that affect my vote at all?
That's a super fair question. And what I was basically getting at is that if this doesn't, as a man, earn you some political points of respect, that's what the essence of what I was saying. But of course, that you're electing a president, a set of policies in 4 years, and that's a fair critique.
Okay, so I want to ask you about Ronna McDaniel, because you led the charge against her at the
Mitt Romney. I'm kidding.
Okay, you can go whatever you want. Hey, listen, in a sense, I'm leading the charge against Jamie Harrison at the DNC. So,
and one of us has been successful.
Well, give me time. Give me a minute.
I'm rooting for you, man.
This is the thing I don't get, and this is why, for the first time, I find the convention, the Republican convention, so fascinating, because I do see this growing faction of Republican voters who are headed in the direction of economic populism, right? They like Social Security, they like Medicare, they want better wages for workers, they want protectionism in regard to trade and tariffs. And I find that also fascinating, but at the same time, you seem to be empathetic to that message and to those desires by some Republican voters. At the same time, like on your show, you had this one segment.
Not a fan of Social Security.
Yeah,
So let me clarify.
Wildly popular even among Republicans.
I'm just not a fan of things that aren't properly funded or go bankrupt.
So would you be in favor of lifting the cap on Social Security taxes in order to fund Social Security?
Educate me what that would look like.
So it's around $174,000 if I remember right.
So like rich people shouldn't get Social Security effectively?
No, not at all. They should definitely get it.
Everyone gets it.
Everybody should get it.
Regardless of age? Or
no. Everybody in terms of income, right? But because universal programs work better, everybody buys into it. Because if the rich don't get it, they'll kill it. That's usually how it works.
But how's that any different than?
No. Hold on.
Deducting tax for Social Security past a certain income, and every year it changes. So, for instance, let's say you're making $200,000 a year. After about $174,000,
the FICA tax no longer
they
applies.
stop taxing you on Social Security.
Okay. Yeah, I'd have to think about that. That sounds like probably a good idea, but I'd have to like look at the counter argument.
Okay.
I mean, but look, as far as what my critique of Social Security is that it is going to go bankrupt soon, and it has been a lot of series of promises funded by debts and deficits. But yes, we have a moral obligation to fulfill the contract that we have with workers that have paid into it for quite some time. And so, but we're fooling ourselves if we act as if this thing's going to be around forever. At the current pace, that's just not correct.
Okay, it definitely can be if all you do is lift the cap.
Okay, I'll take your word at it. I'm not in the weeds of Social Security policy wonkery.
Yeah, no problem. So let me see if I can find more agreement. Paid family leave. 84% of Americans agree with it. 74% of Republican voters agree with it. 12 weeks off for a mom after.
That's what we do at Turning Point.
Yeah,
we do 3 months family leave.
That's exactly what we do at TYT.
So we're another point of agreement.
Okay, so but we can't get corporate Republicans or corporate Democrats to say yes.
Well, I think either Rubio or Romney pushed this. You guys could correct me. Yeah,
Romney
right, my favorite guy. But I'd have to look at what the European model does. But if we're actually, and there's abuses, of course there are. But yes, I mean, again, I'm not like a huge fan of like more government programs all the time. Just that's my disposition. But how about this? Instead of $200 billion to Ukraine, $200 billion to say that moms can stay with their babies for 12 weeks.
I mean,
we would definitely.
Okay, then we have agreement.
Okay, because look, Russia did invade Ukraine.
They were provoked.
All right, we can get into that disagreement.
I'm more based on war than you are.
No. Look,
you're neoliberal. I'm giving you a hard time.
No, let me ask you this question. Do you still live like a capitalist every day?
I watched back that video. It's so cringe. And it's like, we can all grow and, become better people. And yeah, I don't even know what that means.
I didn't either. That's why I wanted to ask. All right, thank you for joining us, Charlie.
Thank you,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
Thank you.
All right, from Turning Point USA. We'll be right back. Join us. Charlie was with us at the RNCs, now with us at the DNCs, of course, with Turning Point USA.
Good job.
Okay, not Talking Point USA. Okay, that was what I said last time.
That was hilarious.
It is kind of funny. Yeah. Charlie, I'll start actually real quick, Hannah. So obviously when we last talked, you guys were riding high. It looked like Trump was in great shape. Yes. Now it looks like Trump's spiraling. And I'm curious if you agree with that or not.
It's the best week ever. And now we got work to do. I wouldn't say spiraling, but I mean, it's probably a 50-50 race. Slight advantage Kamala, like slight advantage probably, because she has a lot of momentum, some vibes behind it. I think the momentum's slowing, but yeah, I mean, look, you have to live in reality. And we had a great convention, and it's, we've had a couple weeks where they switched out a candidate, and it's never happened before. And we're going to see like how real it is in the coming weeks. I think the race really starts on Labor Day. That's where it really kind of sets in. But yeah, I mean, I think we're going to see a race that's very tight to the end.
It seems like the Trump camp was kind of caught flat-footed by it. Like, I really did assume that the campaign is like a lot more strategic this time around compared to like 2016. 2016, it was just kind of like chaotic, but it worked. This time around, I'm actually a little surprised that you have this strategic campaign. The RNC went really well for Trump. I thought they were kind of preparing for the possibility of Biden dropping out and Kamala being the presumptive nominee. And it seems like he was kind of caught flat-footed. What are your thoughts on that?
There was some preparation. They should have listened to you guys. You guys were the most confident. When I came on the show, you're like, no chance Biden sticks. And because you're actually in touch with the Democrat base, like I watch it on TV, so I'm not in touch with it at all. And you guys are like, no way he sticks. And I was like, really? This late in the game? You're like, not going to happen. No way. And you were, of course, right. It's best when he is making the argument that I am against the establishment that has robbed you. Whether you guys agree with it or not, I know you don't. But I'm saying he's at his best when he makes this argument that the establishment has been robbing you, that this power regime has been lying to you, and I am an insurgent against those things.
That is a very popular message. I agree.
Yeah, my advice to him is be the renegade you were in 2016, because fair or unfair, I think it's fair to present this argument that the power centers have consolidated against your campaign in record ways. And he has a sentencing hearing in September, which will definitely play into his argument that they don't want me to be president, so they're willing to use unusual ways to try to prevent me from being president. And so, yeah, look, as far as the month of August, I think from his perspective, he's like, I beat one candidate, now I have to beat another. He had the debate with Joe Biden. He saw this thing happening. And he realizes right now that he's going to have, in a compressed time frame, a very, very competitive race, where against Joe Biden, I don't think it would have been very competitive at this time. This convention would have been not good.
Here's the thing. Again, totally agree that if you run against the establishment, that's your best chance, right? And I think that before, I got a sense that people love Trump for Trump on the MAGA side. Now I get a sense that there's even a splinter group that says, I actually don't love Trump, but I love that he's fighting the establishment, and I hate the establishment so much, I'm going to vote for Trump, right? But he hurts his cause massively when he's constantly pleasuring donors on stage at rallies when he says like, oh yeah, I was against electric vehicles, but now Elon Musk is strongly endorsing me, meaning giving me $90 million, right? Yeah, and it might be more than that. So now I love electric vehicles.
I will give Chuck some credit. If you listen to his Twitter space, he was pretty, they had a back and forth. They were talking more at each other than to each, with each other. But he still says he doesn't believe in the electric vehicle mandate, to be fair, right? He doesn't believe in the subsidies for electric vehicles. So, I mean, I'm sure there's other examples you could list, but look, politics is never going to be pure as much as we'd like it to be. But I think that President Trump has done a very good job of having this economic populist message. And the other message that needs to be talked about, which I think is the Achilles heel of the Democrat Party, where Bernie Sanders used to actually have a great position on his immigration. And the vast majority of this country thinks that we have too many people coming into the country too quickly in an unvetted way. And the economic populism one, Kamala Harris, I said this on my show, she has put the Republicans on defense. I think her policies are insane, to be honest. We could debate that, but it might be not a good use of our time. I think her policies are insane, but they're very popular. They're very popular to say, I'm going to make it easier for you to buy a home. I'm going to make grocery prices more affordable. I think price controls are a bad idea. But immigration is a very difficult issue for the Democrats. It's very difficult for them to navigate because the body politic thinks that we have too many people coming into this country, and I think President Trump needs to lean into that.
So, sorry, just real last thing on the donors. I hear you on immigration.
No, examples. I'm happy to.
Yeah. But so, you got Elon Musk, you got the oil companies where he just keeps saying, hey, look, they're giving me money and we should drill, baby, drill, and all this stuff. He just can't help himself from being obvious. But the number one, like the one that I'm curious as to your take, Miriam Adelson. So when he's saying, hey, I gave her the Presidential Medal of Freedom, first of all, she's a donor. Why'd you give her the Presidential Medal of Freedom? That's terrible, right? And that's better than the Medal of Honor. That's a disaster, right? So what do you make of that? Like, are you bothered that he's saying those things?
No, I'm not. I mean, he's pro-Israel. He's pro-Israel. He's not going to share your views on that. But yeah, I mean, he was pro-Israel throughout his presidency. What you're getting at is he pro-Israel because of donor money? I don't believe that.
And you don't think? Do you think you should have given the Medal of Freedom to Miriam Adelson?
I don't have a strong opinion on that. I think he gave it to her also because of her philanthropy. I could be wrong. I mean,
philanthropy towards Trump.
I mean, Cenk, she did give billions of dollars, like Children's Hospital, stuff like that. I mean, while we're at it, I mean, actors and actresses get the Presidential Medal of Freedom, right? Like Tom Hanks got the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Like legendary ones. And I guess if legendary donors now are getting
a couple $1 billion, like Children's Hospitals and stuff, like a couple billion. I mean, when you go through the list of people who get the Presidential Medal of Freedom, sometimes it's not exactly the criteria that you're making it out to.
Right, but the last part of that, first of all, I disagree with all that. I think she got it 100% because she's a donor, but that's okay. But I mean, you guys stake so much ground on we love veterans, etc. And then when he makes it seem like the Medal of Honor is no big deal, it's a disaster for you, isn't it?
I'm happy to go through it. I actually don't know exactly what he said. So yeah, I'm happy to respond to it. So
I want to pivot.
Understand what he said about the childless cat women was that he was saying that when you have children, that your society is better governed when your leaders for having children when they're not, otherwise when they're not having children. I think you guys could agree with that, right?
No. I don't think at all.
So,
I mean, when I first
can I just ask the hypothetical?
Hold on, let me
50 childless people and 50 people with families. Which group of people would make better decisions for the country the next 100 years?
I think that it is totally wrong to assume that
you don't think that having children makes any bearing on your politics?
No. I don't.
I think you don't think it does something to you where like you think about the next generation? And
I think about the next generation all the time, and I don't have children.
Okay, that's fine.
I think about educating our kids. I'm worried about the fact that so many children in America are illiterate and cannot read. I think about the future of this country all day, every day, right? Like, I don't think having children is like the end all be all of whether or not you care about the future of this country. I love this country.
I want you to be able to have kids. I don't want to make this about you on it. I have a lot of respect for you. But I could tell you as someone who has had kids and has not had kids, it does profoundly, deeply change. Yeah. And it changes your politics. It changes everything. And that's what J.D. Vance was saying, is that when a society starts having children, it starts to throw off the wiring of the multi-generational framing of how public policy decisions can be made. We're not going to agree on that, but I think it's rather common sense that when a society ceases to have children, the society ceases to exist.
So, I have kids, and I have the same exact way of thinking about things before the kids and after the kids.
So that's interesting. Having kids didn't change your politics at all?
Not 1%.
Or your worldview?
Not 1%. No.
I can vouch for that.
Having kids didn't change you?
No. I mean, I love my kids more than you could possibly imagine.
So you didn't learn something about humanity or like how to pass values down or...
Yeah, no, I've been thinking about that all along.
That's incredible. I'm not doubting it, but like your why didn't change? Like why you fight so hard?
Yeah, no, it didn't at all. Yeah, because I kind of view, I mean, this is really corny, but I view the audience and the voters and the average American as family.
Yeah.
And so I was already looking out for
them. So if this is a gruesome hypothetical, but if a shooter came in, and would you defend your kids first or a stranger's kids, or are they the same?
So, I mean, first of all, that's not going to change your opinion on healthcare. It's not going to change your opinion on
obviously defend your kids first, right?
But of course you're going to defend your kids.
No, but that's the point, is that so you have an attachment to your kids, so it has changed you.
So of course you have an attachment to your own kids, of course.
Well,
of course I attack them first.
You, right?
No, but it doesn't change my view on the world, on humanity, on politics, on policy.
I mean,
right. But if there's a shooter, of course I'm going to cover my kids first. I get it. But by the way, like in the Israel scenario, but I wouldn't say, hey, bomb other people's kids to protect mine.
No, I don't believe that. But my politics is all about protecting my kids.
So, okay,
that's the difference.
Hold on.
And actually, that goes to
you're protecting
everyone, right? And so, but that goes to the core, Charlie. And that's why this is such an interesting conversation between conservatives and progressives, because progressive ideology is help someone you don't know,
including non-American citizens.
So, I mean, generally speaking, I want to help the whole world, but of course, you take care of, you've got these circles You got your family, nation, etc. But my point is, you guys circle the wagons, and we think about everybody in a way that's empathetic.
But this is the problem: is abstractions like that is how we end up invading Iraq and forget that our veterans are starving because we worry more about foreign adventures than the immediate. And so,
but that was for the military-industrial complex and the oil companies. That wasn't for us or our kids.
Look at Lindsey Graham, people like that have like very weird personal lives. They tend to not care as much about the immediate. They care much more about the foreign and the abstract. But I'm curious though that you don't think that family formation necessarily creates better politics.
I want to ask you something. Right. So it's what you believe, right?
No, sorry, I don't mean to talk about it.
No, it's okay. Put that aside for a second. What you personally believe, put that aside, and think about optics and political strategy. Do you at least concede that politically speaking, when it comes to optics, it is not advantageous to accuse childless people in America of not caring about the future of the country because they don't have kids? Well, like that is an incredibly people find that offensive,
but
right?
It's also very pro-family sentiment too, saying
I love family. No, I mean, that's also an accusation, right? Like the idea that if you don't have your own kids, you don't care about family. Like,
well, I'm not saying that. What you're asking me is it smart politics? What he said was a couple years ago before he was the VP, and I think that's important because first of all, it's even before he was a Senate candidate. But even if he said it today, I would defend the essence of what he was saying, which is that when you have a group of people that are not attached, their public policy decisions are not immediately impacting the things that they cherish the most, and it's much more distant and much more detached, and much more foreign, then public policy feels much more like playing risk than actually managing your home. And I think that's a big mistake. Conservatism at its best is trying to say, forget the abstractions. What's happening in the neighborhood? What's happening at church? What's happening to the family? But yeah, look, I share J.D. Vance's view, obviously.
Yeah, so I'll say one last thing that I want to ask you about walls because you asked me about walls. So look, I wrote a lot about this in my book, actually, Justice is Coming, because that's my main thesis on the difference between the left and the right. That the right is not indecent. A lot of people on the left think, oh, they're immoral, they're bad. And of course, the right thinks that about the left, et cetera. No, the right wing can be wonderful, but they have tighter wagons, right?
But do you understand that, though? You know where that comes from?
Yeah, I totally get where it comes from.
And I get the energy where it's like, I want to save the entire world. I'm like, okay, but like, how about you try to not have 70 shootings a weekend in Chicago before you tell me you're going to fight climate change?
Well, I say we could.
Right?
No, I definitely say, but we could definitely do both, Charlie. It's not either or.
Let's stop the shootings.
Yeah,
right?
well, look, I would love to stop the shootings.
50% of kids are child abuse in this country, right?
That's what that is, stopping the shootings. Right. Both in Chicago and the mass shootings and all of that. And there, us populists, right wing and left wing, agree because we say, like, why are we spending money in Israel? Or you would say Ukraine, right? And Israel has universal health care, they have paid family leave, they have all these things that we would love and we don't have.
Economics plus.
Yeah, and so, well, we can disagree about that.
We got you there.
No, I don't know.
No deportations.
No, yeah, I would argue that we got you on that. Israel's incredibly harsh and cruel, et cetera, on those things. But my point is, yeah, I get it. Take care of our families first before you start dropping bombs in the Middle East, et cetera. Yeah, and so there are gradations of it. But don't hate the others. You know, if they're outside your wagons, they're not necessarily your enemies. They just happen to be in a little bit further circle away from you. And we're trying to, as progressives, we're trying to get you to empathize with people outside your wagons. But okay.
Policies that she was specific about, especially as it pertains to housing. For instance, Kamala Harris has proposed laws that would ban private equity firms from purchasing up single-family homes, right? Which has driven up the price of homes. And what's really interesting is, again, going back to Donald Trump, what really worked for him in 2016 was similar economic messaging is now something that he's speaking out against because Kamala Harris is proposing it.
Well,
really interesting dynamic.
The BlackRock thing, I agree with. Blackstone or BlackRock, yeah, should not be able to buy single-family homes. At least.
Oh, good. That's great agreement.
I've said it repeated. Same with foreign countries coming in and purchasing.
Oh, here. Okay.
You got a country of ownership, not renting. As far as the $25,000 per home, not a great idea. That will only boost the price of homes.
I agree with you on that.
It's not a great idea.
We need more inventory.
Yes, we need more inventory. So you have to deregulate. You also have to lower the price of energy, which brings up the price of everything. And you guys aren't going to like that, but that includes drill, baby, drill, and bringing down the price of oil and natural gas during this window where we want to try to have a housing boom.
I think we need more nuclear energy.
I think nuclear is great.
We're already number one in energy production.
Top energy producers, but we're also the top energy exporters.
Which
is a problem.
Well, I think we should continue to be an energy exporter. The price of oil is still too high for too many people. Should get back down to $40, $50 a barrel, which, by the way, if you want to stick it to the oil and gas industry, bring the price of oil down. Their margins go down significantly. Secondly, what we're talking about, the private equity, on board for that. You should not have major firms coming in and renting back. 1/4 of all home purchases in Q1 of this year were major asset management firms buying homes for the mere purpose of outbidding Americans so they can rent them back. No, I mean, I have no disagreement there.
Oil prices real quick. I mean, you talk about, we should continue being the top oil exporters.
Yes.
And producing more is going to lower the prices. But remember, we're talking about the OPEC cartel, where other countries are part of this global market. And if Saudi Arabia decides, you know what, we're going to withhold production because we want to make as much money as possible from fossil fuels, they're going to do it. I mean, they've done it before.
No, of course. And the way, by the way, the way you prevent that is you flood the zone with oil. So you produce more oil, and then you become the new Saudi Arabia, so you get to determine what the price of it is.
So there's a lot of different ways to do that. I understand that philosophy.
And you also prevent war with Iran, which would then spike the price.
We don't need to go to wars in the Middle East.
I'm saying prevent the war with Iran.
I know what you're saying.
Because you go to 150 a barrel if you have war with Iran.
Yeah, and that's, I'm just scared to death that they're going to go to war now on behalf of Israel. And then we're going to have $150 gas prices. And so that's a very complicated issue. A lot of things that drive supply and demand in oil. But the reason that I'm not in favor, like for example, $30 billion in subsidies still to this day for oil companies, oil and gas companies. Why? Why are we giving $30 billion of taxpayer money?
Or are they subsidies?
A combination of subsidies and tax credits. And so they don't need tax credits. They're the most profitable corporations in the world.
So can you explain in greater detail? Is that for startup costs? Is that, because I've heard lots of mixed opinions on it. It's easy to say $30 billion. What specifically is that?
Yeah, so they have about $15 billion to incentivize production. And
okay. Yeah, you think we should get rid of that?
Yeah, because they don't need it. They already have trillions of dollars in incentives to do production, to do distribution, to do all of those things.
I'll disagree on that. What's the second part then?
But no, wait, Charlie, you can't disagree on that. Capitalism is about profit maximization, and they maximize profit. They do it really, really well. We don't need to give them our money on top.
For sure. But the thought process was we'd rather have our explorers, our producers explore than Qatar or Saudi Arabia, right? So we want to try to make it easier to drill here, and offering tax benefits in the production side creates American jobs, American financing.
The oil and gas is already under our soil. So when
but it's very capital intensive, as you all know. There's no guarantee when you drill you're going to have your profits back in the next 8 to 10 years.
Yeah, but there's no guarantee I'm going to get profits at TYT, and they're not subsidizing me $30 billion a year.
With all due respect, though, TYT doesn't keep the entire American economy going.
Well, agree to disagree.
Okay, fair enough. So, but let me ask you though. So to be consistent though, I say yes, subsidies for oil and natural gas because it's 70-80% of our energy. You would say though, yes, subsidies for solar panels and wind and for electric vehicles.
So the subsidies are only for nascent industries when there's an overall need to get that industry up and off the ground, up and running for national security reasons.
Do you think that solar panels are nascent?
At this point, I think they're on the edge of nascent still.
Electric vehicles.
Yeah. Well, now you can make an argument that they're not.
No,
right,
I'm saying.
right. And so, see, those are good conversations to have. Right, exactly. But for the oil subsidies, a lot of them are 100 years old. The oil industry is not a nascent industry. And yes, we do care about climate change. And yes, fossil fuel is destroying the planet.
We're not going to get the climate.
So yeah, so that's the thing we disagree on.
That was the other 15 billion of what? So production, which is all American jobs, but the second part, yes.
And then distribution, which is crazy. I mean,
how do we subsidize that?
So look, you'd have to get into all the details of a thousand, like not 1,000, but literally dozens of laws that some are left from 100 years ago, some are recent, et cetera. But Charlie, these are all funnel money back to their donors. Like we get into all these wars because of defense contractors. People think it's mainly because of Israel. No, it's mainly because of defense contractors.
And when we do oil or defense contractors.
So I'm saying all the subsidies. We do subsidies for all of these different types of donors.
If you have a principle of we don't want subsidies for oil and gas, it's fine. It's $30 billion in a $6 trillion budget. The defense budget's $1 trillion a year, right?
My God, hey, that's interesting. So you could pare down the defense budget? Okay, good.
I've said that consistently.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, why do we have troops still in Iraq and Syria? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I
hear
you on
Syria,
that. So yeah, and they can't account for half their budget. It's an outrage.
We spent $200 billion on this Ukrainian war effort, which was one of the biggest mistakes I think in American foreign policy, and the gain from it. But younger voters, I agree with you. A 25-year-old voter will be, oh yeah, give me free stuff. Like, yeah, give me a house, or make it easier for me to buy a house. Of course, that's more attractive.
So yeah, so again, I could debate all of like the framing, et cetera. And Trump didn't call out the National Guard on the Floyd issues, and and they're not saying give us a free house, and you agree with some of their policy proposals. Yeah.
Free stuff socialism, but also like make it easier to buy a house.
Right.
It sounds so. Of course it is.
Okay, so I love that. I think that's a huge win for us.
But I think it's economically good for the country, of course not.
Okay, but let's end on agreement if we can, right?
We can try our best.
Okay, now I know we already agree on this. I want to see what we can do about it, Charlie, and I want it to be real, right? So post-election, because pre-election, nothing's going to happen, right? But whether Kamala Harris wins or Donald Trump wins, you don't want private equity buying up our homes. We don't want private equity buying up our homes. And I think that's actually quickly going to be the #1 issue in the country. Whenever I go and talk to real people that are not in politics, they're like, oh, God damn it, the housing prices, right? And the American dream is slipping away from all of us. So is there a way that we can work from populist right and populist left on this critical issue and pressure either the Democratic or the Republican president to actually deliver on this?
I think it's a very simple bill. If you have assets under management over $100 billion, you should not be able to buy a single family house. Now, $100 billion sounds, it's actually not that much in the private equity. We're talking about $10 trillion in black, just so we're clear. 100x that. Because some people say, oh, make it 10 billion. Like you got to have that line where you can still, have appetite there. But you think about it, what's happening. And I will say, housing prices aren't only going up because of that. You're flooding the zone with a lot of cheap money. And so money needs to find a home. And then you have one-off investors that aren't BlackRock and that aren't Blackstone that are also bundling homes, 3, 4, 5 homes, because they need to try to find a home for they need to try to find a place for their capital. But yes, I would love to see some agreement, and I would work with anybody on that, because my heart is not to have a nation of renters. I think when people own property, so that's another. So we get one of the family thing. If you have 50 people that own property or 50 people that don't own property, I think we'd all agree the 50 people that own property, they have better politics. Do we agree? or at least the better citizens? No,
but I want them to own homes. No, Charlie,
or they have skin in the game?
No.
They do have more skin in the game. That is true.
No, guys, but
they've poured their entire life savings.
I've been a renter. I've been a renter. I've been a homeowner. None of my policies changed.
No, you never changed.
No. It's not that I never change. And in fact, when I do change, I tell people, I go, hey, listen, I was convinced of X, Y, or Z, but for policy reasons, not because I personally went through that.
I don't know if I would. I think that owning a home, you care more about property taxes.
That's definitely true.
Right? You care more about the crime in your neighborhood and if it impacts you, right? Do you agree?
No, I was a renter twice and I moved out because there was literally blood by my doorstep. So I cared about security. I didn't want to die.
Don't you think you take better care of, say, unit if you own it versus you rent it?
Yes.
Sure. Yeah, there's details like that.
Behavior does change.
And all around the property, but not necessarily about policy.
I know, but then policy that says you get a tax deduction for home improvement, which you do.
Yeah, and so we can debate that
I'm
policy,
just saying, I'm trying to say, though, that the deeper point, that owning property makes a better country, and renting, I think, creates very cynical, radical, nihilistic people. Because
here's the point we can agree on.
Because let me look, the final point, this is not debatable, is that if you're paying all of your money for rent that disappears and doesn't go into an equity bank, then you're very bitter after 10 years.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
Yeah. That's exactly right. So whether it's the bitterness or not, the most important thing is you're not building wealth.
Exactly.
And it's not your asset. You're paying out rent instead of bringing in assets.
Towards the entire political project. That's
yes.
And you become indentured servants, right? You become serfs, right?
And then you view the world as you're like, nothing works for me. It's all rigged. And I think when you own a home, you're like, well, at least I'm working my tail off, but that $400 of my mortgage payment is still just kind of going in the piggy bank. One day I can access that equity. So yes, I think we should do everything we can to increase home ownership. I would like to do it in market-based principles. In addition, we should not all of a sudden have a couple billionaire oligarchs come in and steal away the American dream from the next generation's young people.
Yeah, and ironically, you asked me famously, and we talked about it last time. You said you live like a capitalist every day, right? And so the irony of that is that I'm a capitalist, and
so you live like a capitalist.
I live like a capitalist every day.
You're like owning homes and flipping them and renting them back.
No, you're definitely not doing anything.
Okay, but so my point though there is that in order to protect capitalism and the free markets, I'm gonna agree with market-based ideas, but our real enemy is corporatism.
Yeah.
Corporatism then says we don't want a free market. We want monopolies. We want control of your
system to our advantage.
Would you agree corporatism and also government regulators, government policy that hurts the small from achieving something big?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So we have agreement there.
Yeah. All right. So we hope that whoever wins will all unite together.
I'm very clear that I think that Harris has she has a slight odds right now to win.
Yeah.
Slight.
All right. There you go. Another honest conversation. I love it. Charlie, thank you for joining us from Turning Point USA.
Talk to you soon.
Yeah, we appreciate it, brother.
Thanks.
Cenk, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for that warm welcome. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
So Cenk, the spirit of inviting you is that there's some confusion of these divides of right versus left, populist versus corporatist. I guess a good opening would be, as a man in the progressive movement, as one of the leaders of the progressive movement, what do you make of this last year, the state of the Democrat Party, and kind of American politics from the more progressive left perspective?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm proud to represent the left flank of the populist movement, and I think we need both flanks, so I'm happy to have this conversation. In terms of what has gone wrong in the Democratic Party, it's the same thing that went wrong in the Republican Party, but I do have to give you guys credit for a revolution well done. And what I mean by that is not a revolution against the Democratic Party or the left or the country, but a revolution against the establishment. So I knew you guys were for real in fighting against the establishment when I started going on right-wing shows and I would say something negative about Mitch McConnell. And when I did that in the past, what I would get back is, oh, no, Mitch McConnell's great. Pelosi's terrible, but Mitch McConnell's great.
Let's do it here. What do you guys think of Mitch McConnell?
All right. Yes, I love that. So look, for my left-wing friends that are watching out there, they just booed Mitch McConnell. That's a great thing, okay? And let's do one more. What do you guys think about Dick Cheney? My left-wing friends out there, we have been waiting for the right-wing populists to boo Mitch McConnell and Dick Cheney our whole lives. Take the win. Take the win. Now, what we need to do in the Democratic Party is we need to do likewise. We need to have a revolt against the Joe Bidens, the Kamala Harrises, and the Nancy Pelosi's. And the Hillary Clintons, and now all of a sudden the Dick Cheneys. What are they doing on our side? Are you guys nuts? Right?
I have to interject. When all of a sudden Kamala Harris is doing the Liz Cheney thing, I said, does she want to lose? I mean,
what's amazing is I said the same thing. Look, Dick Cheney polls at 13%. What lunatic thought it was a good idea to wrap yourself around Dick Cheney? I mean, when we started the Young Turks 22 years ago, longest running show in internet history, first ever YouTube partner with original YouTubers, one of the driving forces was get Dick Cheney out of office, right? And now for Kamala Harris to come full circle and say, oh, I've got 90 corporate CEOs backing me, and I've got all these executives on my side, and I've got Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney on my side, was so counterproductive. It's not what the left wing stands for. It's not what the Democratic Party should be about. So the problem is the establishment. They are controlled by the donor class, and mainstream media is their marketing arm. They do not do news. They do propaganda. And one more thing. What I want you guys to recognize is that mainstream media you think is against you. You think they're against the right wing. But they also hate Bernie Sanders. And they also hate me. And they also hate the populists on the left. What mainstream media really loves is the establishment and the elites. They're against all of us combined. And if we dare unite on issues we agree on, they will be livid, and it'll be a beautiful day in America.
And that is correct. I mean, you were kicked off of some of the cable news channels for having heterodox opinions on certain issues. So let's kind of look at the last couple of years. We can go back to the Bernie Sanders thing. Explain to us, why is it that right-wing revolution was successful, and the Bernie Sanders with 2 attempts actually won the primary in 2016, and he had it stolen. Again, stolen election talk can be a little controversial. They stole it from Bernie Sanders in 2016. Why was that revolution not successful?
Yeah, I think it was because Donald Trump was a celebrity and they didn't take him seriously, so they made the mistake of giving him mainstream media coverage. And so they thought, and if you remember, Bill Clinton had this brilliant idea, we'll encourage Donald Trump to run on the Republican side and he'll destroy the Republican Party. How'd that work out for you, Bill? And so I remember saying at the time, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Because what I sensed was, you need a non-politician to lead the revolt. So, because all the politicians, and right now they're having a conversation on the Democratic side about 2028, and the only people they mention are politicians. And my answer to that is, hell no. Okay? Because the politicians are used to the corruption. They grew up in the corruption. They like the corruption. They got their power through the corruption. So I don't want that. I don't need that. And so when Trump came on, they gave him coverage. And here's when look, some people think that things changed after the election. No, I've been saying this from day one. And so back in 2016, actually 2015, after I think it was the second debate, when Trump was on stage and he said, I gave all these guys money and they did exactly what I wanted. At that point, everyone on earth, certainly in establishment and mainstream media, says he has no chance of winning, none. I went on the Young Turks and I said, he's going to win the Republican primary, okay? Because people hate corruption and they know it in their bones, okay? Now, we will disagree on, is Trump really not corrupt? Is Trump really going to do the things that he promised? Is he really a populist? I would love to prove me wrong. I would love that, okay? And like, my God, if Trump got money out of politics, one thing we're known for is credit where credit is due, okay? I would give him all the credit in the world. We're not there yet. We're not close to there yet. So when we get into the issues, hey, how about, and remember, guys, you also have donors. Beware of the donors. Don't forget that, and don't let your guard down, okay? But so on the Democratic side, we have got to elect a populist. If we don't, we're going to make the same mistake we made when they anointed Hillary Clinton, when they anointed Joe Biden, and when they anointed Kamala Harris. So my Democratic friends, how many times are you going to lose before you realize that mainstream media and the establishment are lying to you?
And so is that energy forefront in the Democrat Party right now? And I'm not saying this facetiously. Read us into what the power brokers of the Democrat Party are saying. Are they saying we need to run more to the middle, that we need to embrace more populism? We're hearing some of the names, but what is the vibe of the people that do this for a living?
Yeah, so I can tell you definitively that the Democratic leadership and the Democratic establishment will never voluntarily go in a new direction. They will never voluntarily accept populism. They are built on donor money. They are of the donors, by the donors, for the donors. So what I need left-wing voters to understand is that they're never going to give you what you want incrementally. Martin Luther King talked about the tranquilizing drug of gradualism. Oh, if we just go a little further with Joe Biden, he'll give us another crumble and another tiny increment. No, they're going to just pick a new and improved corporate robot like Pete Buttigieg or Gavin Newsom, and they're going to come out with a new script, and they're going to say, I am now a populist, and they will wear flannel shirts, and they'll go to barbecues, and they'll pretend to eat ribs, and then they'll sneak out and go to French Laundry, right? So don't believe the corporate robots. Remember how many times they lied to you. We need to do a populist revolt and pick a populist left-winger so we could have a real contest in this country. The establishment Democrats are never going to win. We need to go populist, and the way to do that is not by negotiating with them, it's by defeating them in a primary.
Is the Democrat grassroots, are they invigorated towards that end? Because it seemed as if they weren't obviously thrilled about Biden or Kamala Harris, but you could say whatever you want about Bernie Sanders. I have massive worldview disagreements. He had a legitimate grassroots movement behind him of small dollar donors, of people that were working, of activists. Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like that has disappeared a little bit in recent years, or at least has gone to sleep. Am I correct in that? And what would it take to awaken that sleeping giant?
So there's a couple of different branches within the Democratic Party on the left, but the two most important ones are the populist progressive left, that's Bernie Sanders, and we could debate about progressive issues and policies on another day, right? But then there's the establishment wing. So the populist wing is already there. That base that was there in 2016 and 2020 still exists. And remember, guys, and I say this to you and I say it to the left wing, Bernie won the first 3 states in 2020. He was this close to winning until Obama and Clyburn called in all the candidates and said, you all have to bow to Joe Biden. And then mainstream media then said, Joe Biden is the greatest. And they started talking about how Bernie Sanders, the most successful Jewish candidate in American history, had followers who were brown shirts and fascists and Nazis. Where have you heard that before? So whenever it's an outsider, all of a sudden mainstream media says fascist, even if it's a Jewish candidate. Right? So they use the same tricks. And you guys have been canceled. I've been canceled. They do the same thing to both of us over and over again. So the left-wing populists are ready, but we do need some more votes from people who used to be in the establishment Democratic camp. And why were they in that camp? Because they love corruption, they love war, they love change? No, guys. They were in that camp because mainstream media lied to them. And mainstream media told them, oh, Bernie can't win. Bernie was up by 12 points on election day in 2016. They said, oh, he's radical. And they called you guys radical and said you couldn't win. They call us radical and say we can't win. But they're wrong. They're lying. So what I need Democrats to understand is stop believing in Morning Joe and The View and all the garbage on TV.
So that's a really good point about the media ecosystem. You guys are, without a doubt, the most popular, progressive, over-the-top, non-mainstream media sanctioned community. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, 27 million subscribers, 30 billion views. I think it's fair to say.
No, I'm not saying that sarcastically. I don't know of anyone that comes close. However, do you think there's a robust alternative media ecosystem on the left that is comparable to what's built on the right? I can say confidently what we have on the right is pretty impressive. We have from podcasting to videos. We don't rely on cable television. Who here listens to podcasts or social media for all your news? Raise your hand. I mean, every single hand goes up. So do you think the left has some work to do in developing over-the-top media to be able to bypass the main networks?
Yeah, so we have TYT as a giant network, but we have a lot of great progressive and populist shows that are not part of TYT, that's in the left-wing ecosystem. So I don't think that that's the issue. I don't think that there isn't enough shows. I think that there's a couple others. One, on the right, you guys do a great job of coalescing, okay? So you do a couple of things well. You work together well, and you're more welcoming, if I'm being honest.
We're glad Cenk's here, right, everybody?
And a lot of people on the left know this as well. If you agree with MAGA 5%, the answer you get is welcome, right? Come join us, right? On the left, if you disagree 5%, they go, get out of here, you're a right-winger, you're a fascist, right? But if you push enough people out and you guys welcome enough people in, eventually you win the popular vote. That's what I warned them about, and that's what happened, right? So, look, I propose simple rules, the 3 rules of the internet. Rule number 1, when we disagree, we fight. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Rule number 2 is, afterwards, we must have a beer together, okay? And rule number 3 is, for God's sake, when we agree, let's unite. So, for the left, we have too much division. We almost never unify. I don't mean with the right, I mean internally. The left loves to attack one another. I love you guys on the left, I love you. But every once in a while, when we get a yes, when we agree, can we please unite? And the second thing we need is for the old, I'm being honest, and on average, not everyone, of course, but for the older Democratic voters, please turn off your television sets. They're lying to you, they're tricking you, they're trying to get you to vote for corruption, they're trying to get you to vote for policies you don't even want. So if we can do those 2 things, then we'll be in great shape.
So I'm not sure how you'll feel about this, but there is a consensus, not a consensus, there is a belief with some people like Seth Moulton and others that some of the embrace of what we would call wokeism or whatever was a reason why Democrats had a less than desirable election outcome. Do you subscribe to that belief? How do you interpret that when some people say we need to kind of shed away some of the more new elements of the cultural implications of politics outside of economics, like the Seth Moulton belief that where he says the trans stuff hurt us?
Yeah, so look, guys, on that stuff, I've been having these debates internally with the left wing. And I explained yesterday, actually, on the Young Turks. Look, everybody's positions are in a different part of the left-right spectrum and on different policies. So I can name you policies where you say, oh, that's pretty moderate, right? I can name you policies that you're not sure is left or right-wing, but that is definitely populist, right? But some of my policies might be called extreme left in America. So, for example, I'm massively in favor of gun control. You told them not to boo, but I knew they'd boo on that one.
They paused to their respect. You were asking for it, Cenk.
Yeah, I did ask for it. So my point to my left-wing allies is, am I going to emphasize and insist and demand on my gun control policies when we're in the middle of a national election? No, because I know those are not winning issues at this point. I've got more work to do to convince the American people before we get there. So if on trans issues or any other, or crime issues, etc., if you really believe in the most far left positions, as I do on gun control, for example, that's okay. But you've got to know what to emphasize and what not to emphasize. And so if you say, no, I'm going to die on every extreme hill, well, you will. Electorally, politically, you will die on that hill. And then you lose on all of your issues, because it's sometimes a binary game. Certainly elections are. So you got to know what to convince the American people of and what to hold your ground on. And the number one thing to hold your ground on is constitutional rights. So I'm going to do some...
Like the Second Amendment.
So, no, I know. So guys, look at that. We totally disagree on that issue, but we just...
You were asking for that one,
No, no problem. No, but look, but that was an important moment, because we totally disagree on that issue, but we just shook hands anyway. And you know what we'll do afterwards? We'll have a beer! So, you know what it is when you disagree on something and then you fight about it and then you have a beer afterwards? That's called America! So let me see if I can get agreement, and this I don't know which way this is going to go, okay? So when we talk about trans issues in terms of sports, I know we have massive disagreements, okay? And so on one of those issues, professional sports, I agree with you guys. On high school sports, I don't. We'll go get into a bloody battle on that, okay? But I want to ask you guys something. Do you believe that trans Americans should have the same constitutional rights as all Americans to employment, healthcare, and housing? Constitutional rights.
You want me to translate? Well, there is no constitutional right to housing.
Okay, so I hear you. What I got out of that, guys...
I'm just trying to be the interpreter.
Yeah. No, there was a lot of applause and there was some consternation, right? I'll take it. It's a start. So guys, when we can even disagree about what's constitutional, Second Amendment, housing, etc. But just let's treat everyone as Americans. And I say that to the right and I say it to the left.
For sure. So we're going to go a little overtime because I know the boss here. And there's two things. I want to ask about free speech, and then I want to try to say, can we get one or two action items that this community can get behind in this new Congress and this presidency that are populist that maybe we can push for and advocate for? I want to try to maybe see if we could brainstorm that together. Number one, the first on free speech. Do you think that the left, and you are an exception, is ready to embrace a robust, spirited culture of freedom of speech where disagreement is welcome, where you're able to have these kind of dialogues and forums? And I think it's a tragedy. It seems to be that more the right is willing to do it. Prove me wrong if that really is the case.
Yeah, I'm trying to remind the left of who we are, because the left is supposed to be for freedom of speech. The left needs freedom. If you're gay or you're trans or you're Muslim or you're someone that was otherized at some point in your life, you need freedom more than anyone else does. You need equality more than anyone else does. You need justice more than anyone else does. So if you want those things, you've got to reciprocate. So you've got to not, I want you guys to not assume that we hate you or that we're evil or that we're bad. But if we're going to do that, the left wing has to do the same. They have to assume that you're not evil, that you don't hate them, and you're not all of these things. So I know from time to time we'll still get back into the battles and we'll still call each other names, right? But overall, if we can begin to not hate each other, and so when we disagree, let's try two more real quick here. When we disagree, can we agree to not hate each other? All right, excellent. And when we have these fights, to Charlie's point, can we, for the first time in my lifetime, begin to actually listen to one another? And Charlie, I'll give you credit on this, because one of the turning points, if you will, in how I started to view the right wing is when you came on the Young Turks at the RNC, and we started talking about banning private equity from buying residential real estate.
Which I totally agree with. That the young people in this audience should not have to compete against BlackRock to be able to own a home. Do you guys agree?
So we've got a populist plank on tyt.com that's one of the 6 pillars, right? And all my life, I go on Republican shows, I go on right-wing shows. When I say something against the bankers, they're like, no, the bankers are great, the bankers are great. Oh, I was so frustrated. And now, all of a sudden, we got the right-wing populists saying, let's ban the bankers from buying our homes so they don't drive up the prices. Yes! The left, take yes for an answer. Take yes for an answer. And look, what I said online on X was, at least what we got out of this election is, we're no longer in an establishment prison. Now we're in the populist woods. Right? And if you say, yeah, but we're going to fight in the populist woods, yes. But at least we're all human out here. We defeated the corporate robots. And we've got more fights with the corporate robots to come. But out here in the woods, when I see you guys, I don't hate you anymore. Right? I see my fellow Americans. And so in these populist woods, we'll sometimes have skirmishes, sometimes we'll have battles. But the main thing I'm trying to drive with the 6 points of the populist plank, higher wages for Americans, time off for moms after they have a baby, anti-corruption,
totally
anti-war. The reason
audit the Pentagon?
Oh, yes. So the reason I pick those is not because they're the most left-wing positions, because those are the positions we all agree on, right? And God help the establishment if we actually work together to do those things. And finally, to the heart of your question, Charlie, you know, I proposed on X, cut the Pentagon, make sure the generals cannot work for the military-industrial complex afterwards, and free Edward Snowden.
I agree.
So it's beautiful that we have populist agreement on the right and the left on those issues. So I'm asking you guys, let's make those a reality, because right now, a lot of my friends on the left don't believe you. They think, no, they can't possibly be telling the truth, right? No way they're going to cut the Pentagon. No way they're going to have a conflict of interest rule for the generals. No way they're going to do any of this, right? Prove them wrong. Prove them that you are actual populists, that you do mean it, and that we can work together to get those things done.
Cenk, thank you so much. Guys, that was great. Thank you.
We got him. According to the FBI, Charlie Kirk's assassin has been brought to justice.
Thank you, Governor. This is what happens when you let good cops be cops. The FBI and our partners are proud to stand here today together to bring justice to the family of Charlie Kirk.
That's right. According to the FBI, Charlie Kirk's life was brought to a tragic end by a lone gunman by the name of Tyler Robinson. A lone gunman, by the way, with not one, but 2 patsies in the crowd, interestingly. Our FBI director, Kash Patel, proudly announced that they caught him in record time, less than 36 hours, 33 to be precise, he says.
In less than 36 hours, 33 to be precise, thanks to the full weight of the federal government and leading out with the partners here in the state of Utah and Governor Cox, the suspect was apprehended in a historic time period.
Kash does look mighty proud, doesn't he? Although according to all the reporting I've seen, it was actually the shooter's father, now hailed as a father of justice, who convinced his son to turn himself in. According to CNN, a family member told investigators that Robinson had, quote, become more political in recent years. Authorities also claim that they discovered, quote unquote, anti-fascist messages engraved on the ammunition. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel also chimed in on Fox News, claiming that Kirk was assassinated by a combination of, quote, radical Islamists and ultra-progressives. As for the murder weapon, the FBI stated that they found the killer's rifle in the woods, fully assembled. And here's that alleged shooter caught on CCTV footage running across the roof with the rifle? Anyway, I have been told that the barrel can apparently be disassembled within seconds, which he then put back together in the woods to hide it from authorities. So we got him. Now, no more questions, please. Well, maybe just one more.
This is a source that I trust very much, and this is coming from the top levels of government. And they were having dinner with people senators in the Senate Foreign Intelligence Committee. They are not openly saying this at this point.
Of course not.
But in private conversation, they're saying, hey, this looks like potentially Israel is behind this.
Wow.
And then in terms of getting to the actual evidence itself, a very close friend of Charlie Kirk's put out there. Charlie didn't want to put out this tweet himself, but he told a friend to put it out on the internet and said, hey, if I go against Israel, I think they will kill me.
And when did he say this?
This was August 13th.
So less than a month ago.
I can see Charlie over the last few months sort of take in new information and have his mind shift a little bit, right? He used to be an Israeli loyalist. Then he starts to sort of mildly criticize Israel in that, hey, I don't think, we shouldn't be allowed as an American to question the acts of a foreign government.
I have text messages, Megan, calling me an anti-Semite. I have less ability sometimes online to criticize the Israeli government without backlash than actual Israelis do. Mm-hmm. And that's really, really weird, isn't it, Megan?
And he publicly stated, hey, maybe Epstein was Mossad. He certainly had a lot of connections to Israeli ex-prime ministers.
And there's also this clip where he questions how October 7th happened.
Was there a stand down order? 6 hours? I don't believe it. Israel's the size of New Jersey. When I took a helicopter ride from Jerusalem to the Gaza border, it's 45 minutes. 6 hours. They're live streaming the killing of Jews. Did somebody in the government say stand down? That is a legitimate, non-conspiracy question.
I mean, this is a big problem for Israel. Charlie Kirk was maybe the most influential figure on the right, especially with people under the age of 30. Mm-hmm. And when you start to have somebody that influential as a conservative is say, hey, we need to maybe reassess this relationship. There's something weird going on. This is a warning to people in the media to say, hey, you need to stop this right now because you could be next.
What a crazy conspiracy theorist that guy is, right? Well, just one last thing for you. This just came out today from Max Blumenthal and Anya Parampil. Charlie Kirk refused Netanyahu funding offer, was, quote, frightened by pro-Israel forces before death, friend reveals. Ooh, let's take a look at this reporting. Charlie Kirk rejected an offer earlier this year from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to arrange a massive new infusion of Zionist money into his Turning Point USA organization, America's largest conservative youth association, according to a longtime friend of the slain commentator speaking on the condition of anonymity. The source told the Gray Zone that the late pro-Trump influencer believed Netanyahu was trying to cow him into silence as he began publicly questioning Israel's overwhelming influence in Washington and demanded more space to criticize it. In the weeks leading up to his September 10th assassination, Kirk had come to loathe the Israeli leader, regarding him as a, quote, bully, the source said. Kirk was disgusted by what he witnessed inside the Trump administration, where Netanyahu sought to personally dictate the president's personal decisions and weaponize Israeli assets like billionaire donor Miriam Adelson to keep the White House firmly under its thumb. According to Kirk's friend, who also enjoyed access to President Trump and his inner circle, Kirk strongly warned Trump last June against bombing Iran on Israel's behalf. Quote, Charlie was the only person who did that, they said, recalling how Trump barked at him, quote unquote, in response and angrily shut down the conversation. The source believes that the incident confirmed in Kirk's mind that the President of the United States had fallen under the control of a malign foreign power and was leading his own country into a series of disastrous conflicts. By the following month, Kirk had become the target of a sustained private campaign of intimidation and free-flowing fury by wealthy and powerful allies of Netanyahu, figures he described in an interview as Jewish leaders and stakeholders. Quote, he was afraid of them, the source emphasized. So yeah, this story is obviously over, so hope everybody has a good weekend. Hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.
So I'm just finishing up the edit of this video, and I came across something insane about the patsy who I referenced earlier, who was arrested at Charlie Kirk's event, and you're definitely going to want to hear this.
What are the odds that George Zinn, the patsy that was arrested at the Charlie Kirk assassination, also saw 9/11, he saw the planes fly into the buildings and called that in or reported it, and then he also called in a fake terrorist attack at the Boston Marathon bombing, and just so happened to get arrested at Charlie Kirk's event. So Tess Keyser, she responded to this tweet and she says, Grok is a guy really involved in all three events like this post claims. And Grok fact checks it and goes, based on a review of multiple sources, George Zinn was a witness to the 9/11 attacks and he described seeing planes hit the towers. He was also arrested in 2013 for emailing a bomb threat joke to the Salt Lake City Marathon shortly after the Boston bombing. He pled guilty to a terrorism charge and somehow magically only received probation. He was also detained and questioned as a person of interest at the Charlie Kirk assassination on September 10th, 2025, but released without charges relating to the shooting. Then Grok went on and made sure that it told you there is no credible evidence that supports claims of his involvement in 9/11's false flag, facilitating Kirk's death, or Mossad ties. The main suspect in Kirk's killing is now Tyler Robinson, and he is in custody. So I asked Grok to break this one down. Well, I said, use statistical probability and give me a ballpark stat on the probability of him being at all three major events. And it goes through here and it breaks it down. And we get down here to the very bottom where it combines the probability right here. Combined probability. And it says it is equal to 0.705% or 5 times 10 to the power of 8. That translates to approximately 1 in 2 billion.
Still, probably nothing to see here.
But liars lie, and they gin up otherwise good people.
I saw this video, by the way, further to that point of Anna Kasparian. Her and I have basically been on the opposite sides of everything throughout our entire career. She has said horrible things about me, but so what? I thought this video was interesting, and I'm going to show you what she said regarding AIPAC.
AIPAC is evil. AIPAC is evil, evil. My fellow Americans, are you okay with that? Are you okay with a lobbying group representing the best interests of a foreign government telling you you need to bust your ass every day, work a job that you likely hate, and have a portion of your earnings taken from you by our federal government and funneled to the Israeli government so they can commit atrocities in the Gaza Strip? Are you okay with that? Because I'm not okay with that. And nothing gets under my skin more, okay, than hearing these pieces of crap say things that make it clear that they feel entitled to our money. Entitled. That gets under my skin more than you guys understand, okay?
That's an impassioned response, and what she's referring to there are some leaked documents from an AIPAC meeting. AIPAC, of course, alongside Big Pharma, is one of the biggest lobbying organizations in the United States. They lobby our congressmen, and I'm certain that that includes journalists, because if you have a budget like AIPAC, why wouldn't you be lobbying journalists as well to essentially always fight to have pro-Israel narratives? And again, I want to be clear, I am not anti-Israel. This is what is so wild about all of this. I'm just not anti-Palestinian. And so I hear what she is saying, and I believe that what is happening right now in this country politically is an evil. It is wrong. It is completely ridiculous to have a bunch of people that are fearful to speak and say rational things that they know to be true, because they know they can lose everything.
People who gripped it off of free speech and who won't say anything, and recognizing that this administration, this current administration, is taking a turn that is quite dark, okay? It is not what we signed up for. We are supposed to be the people who defend speech. So why is it now I'm finding myself in agreement with Anna Kasparian and Cenk over at the Young Turks, who are calling out what is happening and how suddenly there is this squeeze on speech only as it pertains to the special topic of Israel? Take a listen to what Anna had to say on the Young Turks.
David Friedman, who actually was Trump's ambassador to Israel in his first term, he doesn't just stop at progressives and their critique of Israel. He's also focusing on the right wing as well. And I suspect that this is waking the right wing up.
Yeah, this is not going to play well.
Because if you think that free speech violations are only going to impact the left, you'd be mistaken. Take a look.
I condemn anti-Semitism on the right and on the left. I'm an equal opportunity condemner of anti-Semitism.
You're alluding to Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, none of them are any good on the right. On the left, I don't like any of these anti-Semites, and I'm not shy about it. There's no reason to think we're ever going to convince them, but we can deport them. We can put them in jail. We can make their lives miserable. We can cut off their funding, and that's what the Trump administration is doing for the first time.
Now understand what he considers anti-Semitism. And by the way, you're an American citizen. If you are spewing anti-Semitic garbage, you're actually free to do that as long as you don't act on it, right? Free speech is a thing. Hate speech is protected under the First Amendment. This guy thinks that simply criticizing how Israel is prosecuting the war is already anti-Semitic. It's already anti-Semitism. And he wants to throw you in prison for it.
Yeah.
In prison for it.
And by the way, that was an answer to a question about Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. So we're not talking about student visas anymore.
Oh my God.
Now we're talking about core American podcasters, people in media on the right and the left. If you criticize Israel, he says, well, you have no heart and you have no mind. You have no heart because, of course, you should know when Israel slaughtered 15,000 children, it was the most moral thing to do. And if you dare disagree, we'll arrest you. And what do you say? Oh, we'll cut off your funding. By the way, he's like, it's anti-Semitic to say that the Jews would control speech in America. But if you dare cross Israel, we'll cut off your funding, we'll deport you, we will arrest you. But don't say it. If you say it, what I just said, I'm going to call you an anti-Semite.
No, maybe I'll throw you in prison.
Okay, they're saying, well, we start with the left, but we're equal opportunity condemners.
Yeah.
So Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and everyone else, you start slightly criticizing Israel. We got a jail in Louisiana and then one in El Salvador that Israel can send you to via the U.S. government.
It's insane, okay? It is insane. Time for Americans to wake up to what is happening, okay? Because our freedoms will be taken away very quickly. And yes, it is happening under this administration, okay? 1000% Trump is being surrounded by ultra-Zionists who are getting him to take stances that are running counter to freedom. And those of us that are calling it, I don't care. I really don't care what you call me. I don't have to survive a Trump administration. My kids have to be able to grow up in a free country. I just can't. I will not tolerate it, whether it's happening on the left or the right.